Okay, we're continuing at Fort Mims.
We're continuing at Fort Mims.
And you're Sergeant?
I'm actually aide de camp.
Aide de camp.
I'm aide de camp to the militia. I portrayed an officer who is a first lieutenant, and he was sent down here 2 days before the battle, and he was tied to the Washington, and Washington wanted to make sure that the officers here were doing their job. So he was sent with no orders and told one thing with his orders that he was received, that he was to garrison the fort and only to write back the orders back to Washington. Well, they came, they massacred me, they chopped me in several pieces, they broke my neck and took my scalp. Well, they left me to die. I was picked over by a couple vultures, and a couple of dogs drugged me into the woods about 3,000 feet from here. And so one day when several years back, there was this thing called a reenactment. I don't know what happened, but these funny looking people were dressing up as these costumes, and as I came out of the woods, there was a fire, and I showed up, and this young man was sitting in a chair, and I positioned myself into him, became his body. I'm no lie. I'm no lie. Came to me in his body and told me to bury him. Well, that was several years ago, and I have not found him since. I've looked in the woods. I've been here. I've really come up here when there's absolutely no one here, and so we're safe.
So he's out there somewhere. You're out there somewhere.
I'm out there somewhere. He did not bury. He was buried. Wasn't buried. He was just his flesh rotted away. His uniform disappeared. His buttons fell into his cavity, and he got covered up as leaves fell on top of him.
That's been nearly 200 years. So
yes.
197 years.
197 years.
Well. Big massacre. Well, one body got away. I guess a lot of bodies might have rotted before the hogs.
There was 36 people that actually were escaped and ran down to Dead Lake here, hopped into canoes and sped away and went down the river, down to Blakely, and caught a boat to Mobile and wrote his story in the paper, and they forgot about it. He lived and had his kids, and his kids became grandchildren, and they're in Mobile or have surrounded our areas. The other families that we know of, the 36 families, have settled in this area, Montgomery Hill, which is right down the road here, where the Baptist Church, or the Methodist Church is. It's 1842, Heart Pine Woods. They've got a cemetery behind there. There's two members there. They're a family that moved from here, moved down to Blakely, and when Blakely dissolved, they went on, and they went on into moved back to Georgia, and there was families that moved to Pennsylvania, and there was families that moved to Mobile. Well, they've all become integrated members of the society now, and their descendants still come to these battles and write their names in, saying, I don't know all the names, but what they do, they have names that they wrote down, and they've recorded these names, and their people are still here.
No, I've met a number. I've grew up with a lot of them over in my part.
So they don't know why. The story goes that Fort Mims was not here. His house is right there where the gum tree is. Right here. It's got a big sweet little gum right here. His house is right there. The lady sitting right there. That was his house. And Fort Mims built this house here and stockaded his house. Well, the federal government came in and said that this fort needs to be established here. And he said, why me? Well, you're part of the pony route coming in from Pensacola. Well, why me? Why do I have to be here? I've got a road. I know where to go. He says, well, guess what? Your house is going to be here. So when they had a cellar there, and about 47 people ran down into his cellar, and actually, when the Indians threw the house onto his, threw fire in his house, it burned down. They burned up, and then the people below suffocated, and then the house collapsed, and then that was there. Well, when the soldiers came back and a week later to find them, they didn't know that there was a house there because there was bodies everywhere, and all they could go was they just puked, and because there was flies and there was hogs still here, and they had to chase the birds away, and they didn't know what happened because there was not many bodies of Indians, because apparently if they had dragged them off or they weren't anywhere, there was no distinguishing thing, so they didn't know who was soldier, who was settler. If they could find out who the kid was, they had there was several men of color, I don't like to use that word, that were here, and they were actually free men from, let me guess, let me think how it goes. If you're going Camden, they came down, and there was a few. The Indians here were actually farmer type people. They had pants on, shirts on. You couldn't tell them from friend to foe. The only reason they put paint on themselves is because Tecumseh, whose grave is right up here, is buried by his mother, Sahoya. She was an Indian princess, and he was a.
You mean Red Eagle?
Yeah.
Not Tecumseh.
I mean, not his father.
Red Eagle.
Yeah, his uncle was Sequoia. Yeah.
You're right. That's Red Eagle. Yeah. William Weatherford.
Weatherford. His father was Scottish.
But they were kind of all done in by Tecumseh's preaching.
Yeah, right. So when he had come here, they had actually a powwow, and they said, "We don't want you. We don't want you to preach your ideas here." And he said, "Well, to honor his father," he says, wait. I'm honoring my father, and I'm saying that my mother says that you guys have got to fight." And accordingly, the right is that they came in and sat in front of a powwow and had big powwow, and William Weatherford said, "Why can't you fight for this? We have a cause here. These white settlers have taken our land off." And well, the white settlers like, "We didn't take your land. You gave it to us." "No, you didn't." And they said, "Well, yes, you did. You took our land." And he said, "Let's have more powwow." So he got up and stomped his feet in the group, and the Indians actually voted him out and said, "Go home. We don't want your kind here. We know you're a half-breed. Your mother is, we honor your mother, but you are a half-breed. We don't want you. You need to go home." And he said, "No, you need to go there." So he went to the upper creeks and lower, which is what the lower creeks, which is a little below Montgomery, and said, "We need to raise up." So they came down, walked down the path, sat in the meeting. They said, this was about 4 days before the battle, and they were a little hesitant. They were like, "Well, we don't want to fight. Wait. We have houses. We don't live in no teepees. We don't live in huts. We live in houses. We farm. We grow our cattle. We grow our corn. We raise dogs. We have everything. We don't need to raise no. They're in fact our friends." And they said, "Well, look, if you don't fight, I'll get the big boys from Big Water across the Mississippi to come over. They will fight." "Oh, well, in that case, we'll come over and we'll take your fight on." And they were a little hesitant when they came up here. As you notice, they came up to the grate. They stopped. They knew all their friends. In fact, they traded with these people here, and they would come in. They'd walk in. "Hey, George. Hey, Frank. Hey, Jake. Hey, Frank." And they sat down and would.
And pretty soon things happened.
Everything happened.